Okay. Well, folks, welcome to the Silicon Valley Health Institute. We have monthly health meetings with experts so we can bring information to you all so you can work your way toward optimal health. These experts have lots of information that's very valuable. Our next speaker will be February 3rd. We'll have Dr. Meir Schneider come back and tell us more about how to improve our vision with very simple at-home techniques. That will be, I think it's February 3rd at 2:00. I'll have to check. I think that's what it is. Anyway, today we have Mike Maunu. Sorry for my pronunciation. He's the founder.
That's okay.
He's the founder of a biomedicine company specializing in treating chronic inflammation and 14 major diseases with a patented medical food available only through the MDs. With over 30 years in health and wellness industry, he started his journey with the works of Nobel laureate Otto Warburg and his theory of cancer, low cellular respiration being the cause. In addition, Arthur Guyton wrote all chronic pain, suffering, and diseases are caused by a lack of oxygen at the cell level. This is a textbook in medical physiology, which all medical students had to read. His passion is educating people on how to get optimal health and wellness. And when you truly understand the human physiology, that will be possible. Unfortunately, everyone parrots everyone else today and leads them to believe there's a different cause for every disease and therefore a different solution. This is not the case because there's certain underlying events that underlie just about every disease: inflammation, oxidative stress, et cetera, et cetera. So welcome. Welcome, Mike. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate it. And it's Maunu, Mike Maunu. So it's okay. Don't worry. Listen, I got called every name. In high school, I used to say it was manure without the ER, so you could get Maunu. So
I thought of that.
I have a sense of humor. You'll find out. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So anyway, as was mentioned, the name of my company is Oxygen for Life, Inc. And I'm happy to be here at the Silicon Valley Health Institute, their monthly meeting leading off 2023, January. It's awesome. Can't believe it's already here. So the title I gave was Cell Membrane Health is Essential to Overall Health. But really what I'm going to talk about today is how that ties into chronic inflammation and inflammatory disease, because that's what we're hearing about in all the news, all the press, that it's not so much the disease causing the inflammation, it's the inflammation causing the disease and the metabolic pathways that are impaired. So our company is all about helping to manage today's most prevalent diseases without the use of drugs. Most physicians, and let me minimize you guys' window. Most physicians and healthcare professionals have not been exposed to real EFA-based science. Although extremely important, the field is mischaracterized by many as simply fish oil this, fish oil that, everything's about fish oil. I have seen some talks on your in your YouTube channel where a lot of people are anti-fish oil, and I agree 110%. Fish oil is a problem, and we'll talk just a little bit about it here in my presentation. But it's much more than that. Because the field of econosoid physiology and its strong link to pathophysiology of disease is technically complex, focusing on what's called an impaired delta-6 desaturase pathway and the consequences of having an impaired pathway, which leads to the decrease in production of PGE1, and compensating for this impaired pathway has not been fully exploited until now. Most medical doctors are not aware of this because they don't really study human physiology. No modality of patient treatment will be optimized without understanding and optimizing the patient's EFA-based metabolic pathways in order for significance of the D6D and PGE1 optimization to occur. And I'm going to try not to go too deep into the weeds here because I really don't know the audience, whether it's all medical, consumer, but probably a mixed match in the middle. So we're going to try and make it easy to understand here. So again, my name is Mike Maunu. I'm founder and CEO of Oxygen for Life, Inc. Those are just a couple of pictures of me recently. I just turned 63 last month, and these are all recent photos. I've been involved in the health and wellness industry since 1993. I've been operating my existing company since 2001. And even though I'm not a medical doctor, or I don't have a PhD or any of that stuff, I do work on a daily basis or weekly basis with mainstream physicians, general practitioners, oncologists, cardiologists, anti-aging facilities, and one of my mentors. And he's not a business partner, but he's a leading expert in the world of essential fatty acids. I'll just leave it at that. So this is a recent test I had done just 3 months ago. As I said, right, I'm 63, and it's a measurement using an FDA-approved device that measures arterial flexibility and the state of a patient's autonomic nervous systems. It uses digital plasmography that uses a pulse wave on the end of your fingertip, kind of like an O2 test when you go into the hospital. They put that on there to make sure that you're getting oxygen. Everybody pretty much is getting oxygen, but what this does is it measures how fast that wave comes back to the fingertip. Because as we age and the arteries become more stiff and not flexible. Okay, so I'm just going to move ahead. So anyway, so it does that, then it does a stress test. And what it showed using this FDA approved device is that I have actually little to no cardiovascular plaque at the age of 63. So #1 medical physiology textbook by Guyton and Hall, all chronic pain, suffering, and disease are caused by a lack of oxygen at the cellular level. So my simplistic mind says, okay, so then the $1 million question is, why do the cells lose their oxygen levels, and how do we prevent this from happening? Because if that's where it all starts, then that's where we should be able to fix the problem to begin with. So one of the primary causes, and I think everyone on this call, we're all old enough to agree that I'm not going to talk about the sugar, because we know that's an epidemic here in the United States and around the world. What we are going to talk about is processed foods that make up almost 70% of the US diet. Absolutely amazing how much processed foods that we live on. And those oils that are in those foods are what we're going to find out is the leading cause or the primary cause of all the disease and chronic pain and the lack of oxygen. Anyway, so here's the cell membrane that surrounds the mitochondria. Everybody always talks about the mitochondria. It's where energy is produced, ATP. But when that energy is produced, toxins are also produced. They have to exit through. So in 1990, in the Journal of Lipids, it was written that lipids are the #1 modifiable variable in tissue composition with potential to impact healing. So in other words, it's all about the lipids that are the cell membranes. So what are the lipids that the human body requires each and every day? They're essential fatty acids, or EFAs. They're the fatty acids that humans and other animals must ingest because the body requires them for good health, but can't synthesize them. And what that means is they can't make them on their own. Okay, so there's 2 different fatty acids the body requires every single day: linoleic acid and alpha linolenic acid. So these are polyunsaturated fatty acids. Both are essential fatty acids, and they're 18 carbon bond chains. So in other words, they're at the very top, and from there they can make derivatives as they move their way down. A lot of us have heard about medium chain triglycerides. They're great for energy, they're great for the brain, but they're not the 18, they're not the long chain fatty acids. So linoleic acid, LA, is parent omega-6, and alpha linolenic acid is parent omega-3. So now we're going to get into the one we're going to really study here and talk about today is the linoleic acid, or LA. So there's 7 benefits to linoleic acid, or omega-6. And I don't normally like to put a bunch of text on slides, but I have here because I think it's very important that we really get the identity here. So #1, linoleic acid is a fatty acid that is commonly found in seeds and nuts. It's also known as omega-6 fatty acids. It's a polyunsaturated fat that is considered essential for human nutrition. 2, linoleic acid helps maintain the integrity of cell membranes and supports the immune system. It is also necessary for normal skin function and hair growth. It is also involved in the production of prostaglandins, leukotrienes, and thromboxans. These compounds help regulate blood pressure, inflammation, and pain. 3, linoleic acid is a precursor to what's called arachidonic acid, or AA, a type of omega-6 fatty acid that's found in many foods. Arachidonic acid is a precursor to eicosanoids, which are the hormones produced by cells throughout the body. Eicosanoids play a role in regulating blood clotting, inflammation, pain sensation, inflammation response, all of those things. 4, linoleic acid prevents heart disease. It also reduces triglyceride levels and increases HDL cholesterol levels. We'll get into more of that in just a minute. 5, linoleic acid also promotes weight loss and prevents obesity. It also helps control appetite and regulates insulin levels. Linoleic acid enhances the absorption of iron and zinc. It also aids in the formation of bile acids and vitamin D. What did we hear about the last 2 or 3 years now about iron, or zinc and vitamin D and the C disease that I won't mention here because we'll get it blocked. But they tried to tie the lack of zinc and the lack of vitamin D into the C disease. We're going to find out why they were actually all caused by the same thing. 7, linoleic acid provides protection from cancer. It also helps fight. Okay, so linoleic acid provides protection for cancer. It also helps fight infections and boost immunity. EFAs and PEOs, the essential difference. EFAs, which everyone calls essential fatty acids, we coined the phrase PEO for parent essential oils because it's the parent form of each oil. Parent omega-6, which is LA, is essential. Parent omega-3, which is ALA, which is essential. Most people talk about EFAs, they talk about DHA and EPA from fish oil. Those are not essential. The body can make them every day as needed if they're given the parent form of the oil. And science now shows that less than 5%, maybe even as low as 1% of all PEOs, which are the ALA and LA, are converted into what's called the derivatives DHA and EPA. And so what's been happening for years is we've been told to pharmacologically overload our body with DHA and EPA, a substance the body does not need. And when that happens, the body uses that in a place where it should be using LA. Okay, it gets incorporated into every one of your cell membranes. Now, the LA, or the linoleic acid, those are the cooking oils that are used in all of our foods. Okay, but what's happened, and we're all probably aware of this, is that they're processed and they're turned into trans fats or hydrogenated oils to make food last a long time. And even though recently, was 10 years ago, I guess, finally the FDA caved in and made all the food manufacturers remove trans fats, okay, after so much pressure. And here's the good and bad of that. Yeah, they removed the trans fats, which are horrible for us, but what they put in its place? Why doesn't the loaf of bread spoil? If you baked it fresh at home, it might go bad in 3 days to a week. But bread you can buy from a grocery store and it'll last a month, and no telling how long it's sat on the shelf or was in a truck before it ever got to you. So they're using some other processed oil in the bread and in all the food. Remember, 70% of the food we eat today is processed. Okay, so we're eating all this processed oil that's been chemically bleached, heated to high temperatures, and it's now being incorporated into our 100 trillion cells. And we're constantly told every day that we get too much omega-6 in our diet. So everybody, we're getting an overdose of processed linoleic acid or parent omega-6, but not unprocessed, unadulterated. So what's often overlooked is that patients consume adulterated cooking oils often over decades, laying down the foundation of the metabolic impairment. Now, why is LA processed? We talked about it, to obtain longer shelf life. Extended repeated use without natural rancidity of cooking or frying oil in commercial restaurant baking and frying is required, extending the longevity of the cooking and frying oils. It creates significant impairment in the 100 trillion cells. These are the toxic chemicals that are probably found in everybody's household. I think the number one that I see more people, even people that are healthy, conscious people, is coffee modified. So, okay, maybe that's it. So the number one product that I see that most people have, even those that are healthy, is coffee mate. But as you know, all those other products are toxic, extremely highly toxic, because they've all been processed to keep them from stinking when you open them up, or the smell and everything else. And it all started way back when. Now, this may seem kind of funny that butter is used directly for energy. Saturated fats are perfectly fine. It's just a matter of what they're made out of and where they come from. So exactly what is oxidation in LDL, the cholesterol molecule itself, or something else? The answer is something else. The cholesterol molecule and linoleic acid are each highly resistant to oxidation in the body. There's only one antioxidant molecule per 165 cholesterol molecules, far too few protectors to prevent any rampant oxidation in vivo, if this were the issue. It is food that's consumed on the outside using processed non-functional LA or linoleic acid, parent omega-6, that the cholesterol molecule is transporting, that is oxidized. The oxidized linoleic acid is not becoming oxidized in the body. It is exogenous from consumed food already oxidized. This fact precisely explains the lack of need for cholesterol antioxidants. The damage has already occurred before food consumption. So in other words, what it's trying to say here, and there's quotes here and cites here from textbooks, is the fact that it's not the cholesterol that's bad, it's what the cholesterol is transporting, which are these processed adulterated oils that are in all the food that we consume every single day, because cholesterol is so important for so many bodily functions. What comprises an arterial clog is not saturated fat. It's been proven numerous times and published in so many journals. High resolution chromatography confirms occlusions are approximately 85% non-functional, adulterated, processed linoleic acid, not the cholesterol molecule itself that is produced by the body, as is often implied. Here's what basic medical biochemistry clearly states as well. The body oxidizes more fatty acids each day than any other fuel, more than carbohydrates. Fatty acids are the major fuel in humans. You have to take in saturated fat every single day. Now, medium chain triglycerides, they're good for energy in the brain, but what the body requires more of are the long chain that we talked about earlier, the 18 carbon bonds, because then the body can break them down into the substrates that they need. Okay. Now here's what the textbook of medical physiology states, buried on page 866. Almost all the energy requirements of the body can be provided by the oxidation of the transported free fatty acids without using any carbohydrates or proteins for energy. Note, this also answers the question of muscle wasting from lack of carbohydrate consumption. It's another myth. The medical textbooks make it crystal clear that carbohydrates are not the body's preferred energy source. Your own body's fat is supposed to be. So I saw someone asking, raising a hand or questions. Maybe that's how you normally did it, but we're not going to open this up to questions because it might open everybody else up as well. We'll just wait to the end. Timelines in nutrition. So is there any more proof or fact of what I've been talking about today? Well, it was first published in 1939 that using cottonseed oil or hydrogenation or trans fats was associated with skin cancer. Hydrogenation from modern food industry predicted to cause massive heart disease. This turned out to be true, but was printed in 1956. but yet they told us to eat the margarine and stop eating the butter. Do you think they turned everyone cancerous and turned us into an epidemic of heart attacks being number one? Studies implicate distorted trans fats are also linked to cancer. Women's coronary risk linked to processed trans fats, not to unprocessed natural fats that occur in nature. The findings were presented at the American Heart Association. They disclosed the fact that lowering fat intake is not effective for reducing cardiovascular risk. Fat should be placed low on cancer risk. Ideal diet for cardiovascular prevention contains healthy essential oils, unadulterated, unprocessed. The Association of Dietary Intake of Fat and Fatty Acids with Risk of Breast Cancer, again, premier journal of American Medical Association. We found no evidence that lower intake of total fat or specific major types of fat was associated with decreased risk of breast cancer. Contrary to the prevailing hypothesis, which are nothing more than guesses, the overall trend was inverse, or the opposite. The more fat eaten, the less breast cancer, and statistically significant. Expect vision-related problems where there is too many trans fats, also published in Essential Fatty Acids and Eicosanoids. linoleic acid, and most polyunsaturated fatty acids, including arachidonic acid and EPA, were lower, means they didn't have very much of it, in heart attack victims. The fatty acid patterns of the phospholipids is an independent risk factor for heart disease. And that was published in the Serum Lipids Predicts in the British Medical Journal, technical stuff. Polyunsaturated fats naturally support healthy blood cholesterol levels. Number one medical textbook of medical physiology. So anyone telling you that saturated fats and polyunsaturated fats are bad are only half correct. It's the type of fat and where it comes from that's bad, and whether it's been processed. We have to have these fats, and we have to have them every single day, as we've already been shown. So where do they come from? They need to come from plant-based seed oils, okay, that are fully functional, okay? The problem is all of the parent omega-6 in our diet is all processed. It's all adulterated. Technically, it's all poison. Omega-3 is rarely processed because it burns too fast and too easily. And most patients consume insufficient qualities of the parent form, which is ALA. We're overloaded on EPA and DHA. And again, why is it important? 100 trillion cells. The cell's lipid portion contains 25% to 33% essential EFAs. It's the brick and mortar of every cell membrane in the entire body. The mitochondrion, where all the energy production takes place, has hundreds to thousands of cells inside of each one. And functional LA is critical for the body to produce energy. Wonder why everybody's got low energy levels. They're fatigued all the time. That's why. So in 2017, secretory cells are hypersensitive to changes of their membrane lipids induced by diet. Diabetic patients consume processed foods, causing daily chronic inflammation. They continue to contribute to their own symptomology. Patients' harmful processed food consumption must be compensated for on a daily basis. So if you're going to continue to eat all this processed garbage, you've got to compensate it on the other end with unadulterated oils. Now, what are those that you need to be consuming? Plant seed oils such as sunflower, pumpkin, evening primrose oil, flax, as well as nuts are ideal sources of these PEOs. They're based on action human physiology and biochemistry, and it's a calibrated quantity and ratio of PEOs is required. In contrast, aside from the brain, eyes, and nervous system, most tissue and organs contain very few derivatives like EPA and DHA. So fully functional LA is critical to each and every one of our 100 trillion cells and allows hormones, among other important biochemical physiologic pathways, to be more effectively utilized, e.g., less insulin resistant. I hear people talking all the time about insulin resistant caused by the sugar or the insulin being, no, it's because your cell membranes are, I use the analogy, plugged with plastic, because the membranes won't allow the insulin transporting the sugar in your bloodstream to get into the cell membrane because the cell membrane's blocked, okay? when you fix and correct the membrane issue, insulin resistance goes away. It literally goes away. So fully functioning LA is also critically important for maximizing cellular oxygenation. And oxygen transport is known to be the primary cause of cancer. That was done by Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, Nobel laureate, that was published back in 1927. Women who go through menopause have hormonal changes because all your hormones are made from linoleic acid. If you are consuming nothing but adulterated oils, your hormones aren't going to function correctly. Men, erectile dysfunction, neuropathy, everything's tied to the same thing. Okay. So what is the formula requirements? A calibrated blend of parent omega-6 to parent omega-3, preferably in a 2.5:1 ratio of 6:3. For maximum bioavailability and functionality, the oils must be minimally processed, fully organically grown and processed as well. So cold processing is insufficient by itself. Okay, so you don't want any chemicals or pesticides that are used on the plants that you're consuming or the seeds that you're eating. Gamma-linolenic acid, GLA, should be utilized for maximum anti-inflammatory production of PGE1, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And high oleic acid oils are also not to be used. They're toxic to the body. And then an acceptable peroxide value. In other words, they measure the peroxide value of all the oil. So if you were to go into your health food stores, I don't even care if it's your health food stores, the reason why the shelves don't stink is because the peroxide value of those oils are up around 20. So they won't go rancid, but at the same time, they won't hurt you, but they don't allow oxygen transfer in the human body. And the only way to get oxygen transfer into the cell from your bloodstream, because anyone that's tested at a hospital with an O2 meter, you're all above 96, most are at 97, 98. Anything below 96, you're going to be in a hospital. So you get oxygen into the bloodstream, it's getting into the cell membrane. That's the critical issue that we're talking about here. So my question to you is, what are you building? What's your foundation? A cement mason uses sand, water, and cement to make a block wall. If any one of those things is off, guess what's going to happen? The wall's not going to stand. Same thing with the human body. Same thing with your automobile. Put all kinds of different fuel in your car that if you don't change the oil, because it needs to be changed, or you use the wrong kind of oil, what happens to the engine? Well, in the human being, our body is able to adapt, and it can literally take years and years and years before these diseases show up. And yet what happens? You have one. So most people that have these issues have more than one issue at one time because it's all caused by the same problem to begin with, which is the cell membranes. So with most parent omega-6 being adulterated by food processors, almost 50% is non-functional. We need a lot of fully functional parent omega-6 to compensate. PEOs or linoleic acid supports all of these things in the human body. If you've got an issue with any one of these, let alone more than one, you got a problem with your cell membranes. And what we're going to talk about in a minute is the delta-6 desaturase pathway and how that works in the human body. Okay. So any one of those things, if you got more than one thing, again, this is the reason why. And again, most people say that, 2-to-1, 1-to-1 ratio of 6-to-3. We say more along the lines of 11-to-1. And the reason why is most people out there parroting information don't consider the fact of the ratio of 6-to-3 in the human body. So the brain and nervous system, it's only 3% by body weight, and the ratio of 6-to-3 is 100-to-1. You get into the skin, it's the largest organ. It's only 4% of the body weight, but it's 1,000-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. There literally is no omega-3 in the cell membrane in the skin. This is the reason why so many people are vitamin D deficient. The human body is supposed to make vitamin D when natural sunlight hits the skin, and then it does its thing. But if your skin's plugged because of processed oils, guess what happens? It can't produce vitamin D. Okay. Organs and other tissues, there's the ratios. Fat has more cells. It's going to require more omega-6 for all those cells. Same thing with muscles for athletes. Athletes need more omega-6 in their diet because their muscles require it, because muscles will take up 50% of body weight. So that calculation has to go in there that you need 11-to-1 conservatively, the ratio. Okay. And those are all the published papers on that. So again, the skin, there's no omega-3 in it. Cancer is tied to it. Vitamin D production is tied to it. Well, is there any other research that validates any of this and the difference between adulterated and unadulterated? Absolutely. Finally, we've been pushing this message out into the marketplace since around 2000. Our first patent was granted in 2010. But in 2013, the Journal of Integrative Medicine, in a published study on the differential effects of adulterated versus unadulterated forms of linoleic acid, which is parent omega-6, on cardiovascular health. They came out and said, hey guys, you have to stop taking garbage oil that's been highly processed and try to do experiments and get a result that's going to produce anything. It's the same thing when most researchers for a lot of things use mice. Well, if the mice are fed grain or any type of oil that's been adulterated, what do you think is going to happen when the tests are done on the mice? It's going to throw all the tests off. So we have to start using unadulterated oil when we start to run these tests in vitro to see what it's going to do in the human body. Because using these adulterated oils, this is going to lead to an increase in defective intimal structure and defective functionality, impaired cell membranes, and the tissue lining of all your skin and your cardiovascular system, as well as all your organs and tissues. Okay. It's skin. So it's amazing that the intima and the inner lining of the arteries, epithelia tissue is all LA, all linoleic acid. Okay. So you have to be giving your body this every single day to protect your cardiovascular system as well. All diabetic patients, as we know, if you know anyone with diabetes, and even the vast majority of non-diabetic patients consume lots of processed foods. We also know that diabetes leads to diabetic neuropathy, the potential for having to have your limbs amputated, and to cardiovascular disease and heart attacks, because the same cause is there. So this leads us to the most important thing that allowed us to get our patent on our medical food, which is what's called the delta-6 desaturase pathway that causes this chronic inflammation, or I should say the lack of an inflammatory response when pain or inflammation occurs. Now, this is what's called the eicosanoids optimization pathway. This is highly technical. The one we really want to be concerned about is the one in the right-hand column, which is called omega-6. Again, the LA, 18-chain carbon bonds that converts into GLA, which is then sent to the body for the pain release, the inflammation, and then it gets broken down into these other areas. So while treating patients for particular disease or disorder, physicians may not be aware that the patient suffers from an impairment of this pathway. It's when we get to the point where we treat symptoms and not causation, the cause of the problem. The impairment is increasing rapidly in the general population and in younger patient populations as well. It's why you're seeing kids drop dead of heart attacks pre 2 years ago. I'm going to preface that right now because we're seeing so many with the myocardial problems right now. Even before that, cancer in kids and heart attacks and all that stuff, and type 1 diabetes is happening in younger generations because the kids are born direct from the moon living on processed food. Therefore, they're not getting this oxygen transfer. The increase in disease can be explained from a biological, chemical, and pathophysiological viewpoint. The body's initial modulator of inflammation is PGE1, which requires unadulterated parent omega-6 every single day. That's over here. And I don't know if you can see my little mouse, but it's the third one down on the right, and then move over to the left. Okay. And then the rest of these, we're going to go into this. So this is the pathway here, how it's processed. Though the omega fatty acids come into the body, it goes into these different pathways depending upon whether it's an omega-3 or omega-6. But from the omega-6, it produces PGE1, which is the body's most potent anti-inflammatory. It also produces what's called prostacyclin. It's the body's natural blood thinner. It keeps the blood flowing smoothly and efficiently. Okay. Warburg said in his, it's not even a theory, it's fact on cancer, you had to keep the venous flow of blood at a high pace, because what happens is when it slows down because it becomes sticky, because you're not producing enough prostacyclin, it allows the cancer to metastasize. So cancer cells spread from one area to the other area. Now, the next more important part here is the eicosanoids, which are produced further down this pathway. The critical prostaglandins from parent omega-6 and omega-3, cell by cell hormone analogy, they have a very short half-life. They're like the signaling, they're like the signals. So you get hurt, you get pain, you get inflammation. That's good, because it tells the body we need oxygen, we need to heal that area of the body. But what happens if the signaling mechanisms don't work, then we either don't get enough or it doesn't shut it off. Just like we had cytokine storms. Everyone was talking about during the C disease, the cytokine storms of those people that got it. It's not the fact that there was no immune system or lack of immune system. It was the fact that the immune system stayed on high. The body kept sending signals that we need help, we need help, we need help. And that's what the cytokine storms caused by, because these pathways were impaired or blocked from processed foods and processed oils. Other factors which inhibit D6D activity are diabetes, alcohol, radiation, which may be associated with accelerated aging. Okay. So PGE1 activates the T lymphocytes, inhibits smooth muscle proliferation, and thrombosis or blood clotting is important. Your body makes this from the pathway. So you have to get this unadulterated, unprocessed oils in the body every single day. Otherwise, you're building your body out of the wrong material. So what are some of the documented medical textbooks diseases caused by an impaired delta-6 desaturate pathway with chronic inflammation? So these are the big ones: diabetes 1 and 2, including neuropathy, lipid envelope viruses, including the C series, Alzheimer's, all your skin conditions from eczema, psoriasis, they're all caused by an incorrect lipid structure in the cell membranes of the skin, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory bowel disease, chronic fatigue, fatty liver disease, multiple sclerosis, cancer, and then 3 forms of respiratory diseases: mesothelioma, IPF, and COPD. They're all caused, and you can Google it, read about it in the textbooks, delta-6 desaturase pathway in any one of those diseases, and you're going to find the fact. Okay. And as we all know, if you've got an impairment in the function of one organ or tissue system, it leads to impairment of another one. That's why I said initially, it's not something causing this disease, it's something different causing this one, and something causing another one. They're all triggered by the same way, an impairment in this pathway. For example, impairment of diabetic nerve functioning due to hypoxia or inducing reduced blood flow in the vascular system leads to diabetic retinopathy, neuropathy, and increased risk of cardiovascular distress. Chronic inflammation will start a chain reaction. If anti-inflammatory pathways are not activated, the results can be disastrous. It's why people are always in pain and inflammation. Now, when you go get drugs, those drugs block and impede the pathway. So it turns off the signaling and just helps with the pain at that certain area. And anyone who's been through any of those know that usually after a period of time, those drugs stop working. And guess what? You've totally screwed up your D6 pathway by that point in time. Okay. So I use this little analogy here. This is the house. Go back to Texas, Houston, Texas, February, the ambient temperature dropped dramatically. It was freezing there, even if you had your windmills. Many people had to abandon their homes because utilities, electricity, heat, and water were not properly functioning. The house and utilities analogy here is applicable to what is required for the patient's proper EFA metabolism. There's 3 main classes related to these functions: the parents, which are the brick and mortar of each cell membrane, okay, in all the 100 trillion cells. So that's the outside. that protects the house. The house stays up, it functions perfectly. Now, the derivatives are made from the two parents in small quantities. Those are GLA, DGLA, AA, EPA, and DHA, as needed. The eicosanoids, which are really the most important things that regulates every cell function in the body, comes through this chain and the complex signaling molecules. They're made from derivatives, so from the DHA, the EPA, the GLA, in even smaller quantities. They may not even enter the bloodstream and can be extremely short-acting. So a home with broken, crumbling walls and great heat and water is insufficient for living, just as well as a home with great structure, with lots of parent EFAs only, but they're all adulterated, and no electricity, heat, or water in the winter. They're all insufficient for living. And that's the human body. So just a couple quick slides on our patented medical food. So we have a supplement that is the general building blocks for general health and well-being. Further research allowed us to get a patent as a medical food for the management of the delta-6 desaturase pathway. Okay, and the difference, most people don't know what a medical food is. We know what drugs are. Medical food is defined under the Orphan Drug Act. It's a food which is formulated to be consumed or administered eternally under the supervision of a physician, and which is intended for the specific dietary management of a disease or condition for which distinct nutritional requirements based on recognized scientific principles are established by medical evaluation. So in other words, we don't have to go through all the testing. We're not a drug. We're a food that manages this delta-6 desaturase pathway impairment to help the body get back to where it's supposed to be. And the way it works is the product is consumed. So this is one for treating chronic inflammation, on the left here. It splits off into the LA and ALA ratio, which then helps create with new skin and underlying tissues, helps maximum cellular oxygenation, mitochondrial function, maximum energy for cellular healing and growth. There's also a portion of the product or the food. It's actually a lipid or an oil, GLA, which is your gamma linolenic acid, and your EPA and DHA, and it's trade secret ratio, I guess you might say, that helps it immediately increases PGE1 and PGI2. It helps increase blood flow to the tissues, and it helps with anti-inflammation, anticoagulation, and anti-adhesion. So this is the process that takes place with every single one of those 13 diseases that were listed on the slide previously. So it works for all of them. So if you have one issue or two issues or three issues, you need the same one solution, not different solutions. Okay. So S-Trax optimizes even healing from surgeries, underlying tissue structural support, epithelial integrity, PAD, CBD functionality, cellular tissue oxygenation, more energy, neuropathic functionality, also helps with insulin sensitivity, helps reduce cravings for carbohydrates, systemic inflammation, and patient pain. Again, this product only available through medical practitioners and only if you have one of those chronic diseases or inflammation. A couple little slides here. So the lady on the left had actually been taking our over-the-counter patented supplement for general health and well-being, and she got her high heel stuck in a metal grate in Boston in the middle of winter several years back. Well, most people at the age of 86 are going to break and fracture every bone in their body. She had no breaks, no fractures, no concussion. She didn't require any pain meds after leaving the hospital. And within 60 days, she was almost completely healed. And we had a major medical practitioner that looked at that at a major university hospital and said, absolutely amazing, but he understand why. The one on the right, this is a before and after with our medical food, diabetic neuropathy, 70-year-old male with right ankle ulcer, varicose veins, severe COPD. He's had multiple episodes with the open wound because there's no cure for it. There's no solution that medicine has today other than wrapping it and keeping it moist and trying to get it to heal up. So the first treatment, ulcer was managed with foam and 3-ply compression. It closed in 16 weeks. The second time, it was treated with foam, 3-ply compression, and 5 cc's of our product 5 days a week. It closed 3 weeks earlier with less pain on the site. So you can see the amazing difference, because we gave the body what it needed to actually grow skin tissue. Okay. Which is amazing. And it happens all the time. So anyway, I guess we'll do Q&A. I'll take it off of here. If you want more information, you want to know about the over-the-counter or the medical food, you can reach out to us at our website or email me directly. So it's a lot of information, but the thing that gets to me is that so many people out there talk in generalities or talk about this, but we try and have all of the documented medical science. And sometimes it goes like over here, but we try and make it simplified and produce where it comes from as our backup. And our main thing is we have 3 patents, okay, and for these exact ailments. And I think it took us 7 years to get the first one. We had to fight the patent office. And why? Because the patent office didn't get the difference between adulterated and unadulterated. And we were the first one to ever make that distinction.
Is the powder available only through a doctor? Is the powder available only through a doctor?
No, so we have the supplement, which comes in capsules or liquids for vegetarian or vegans, same exact product. That's over the counter. And you can go to my website there and you can get it, or send me an email and I can help you out. The medical food, if you already have been diagnosed with one of these diseases and you want to speed up the process, you would have to get your doctor to recommend it. Not a prescription, it's different. It's just a recommendation. So he would have to register with us that he's licensed to diagnose you. And then we could either sell them the product and they can sell it in their practice, which we do for a lot of doctors. Or once they've registered, they can send all their patients to us. We verify that they are signed up with us, and then we can ship directly to the patients. So you only need the medical food if you have one of those conditions. If you can't get a doctor to recommend it for you, then what you do is you take a double dose of our regular product, which will help speed up the process.
Okay, another question. How do we test our own levels of omegas or linoleic acid or ALAs?
The problem that's out there is you can get tests done, but the problem is they don't differentiate between whether it's been processed or unprocessed. There's no way to do that as of yet. But you can get a C-reactive protein test, I believe it's called, which will measure your levels of inflammation in the body. I can tell you this as a matter of fact. If you're over the age of 30, you have a deficiency in unadulterated, unprocessed linoleic acid. You're born straight from the womb that way because the mother's diet today is horrible, as we all know. No matter how healthy they ate, the oils aren't in the food anymore. All the oils we eat in the food have all been processed. You have to supplement. So it's either going raw food vegan, or it's eating nothing but raw nuts and fruits and vegetables that have been unprocessed. Then you have a chance of getting the oils.
Now, Yolanda says, great information. So I wanted you to have that positive accolade. Also, we have a question that Atta is interested in using his product in his inflammation mediation model. So I would ask Atta to put more in the chat about that so I can pass it on to our speaker. I'm a little afraid to give anybody control of a microphone because Lord knows what we're going to get. Now, Mona has a question. Are you looking at how certain genetic polymorphisms may affect fatty acid metabolism?
No.
Okay.
It's all epigenetic.
Okay.
It's the environment and the food we consume that does anything with the genes. It just doesn't happen. You got to fix, excuse me, 1 second, Susan, let me jump in here. You've got to get a level, we call it a level playing field. You got to get homeostasis back to normal, which is to get the body operating correctly. And the only way you can do that is after a period of time being on the oils, or doing it yourself and making the oils every day fresh, then you see whether you have an issue anywhere.
Well, Mona, in following up on her question, says, for example, FADS1 affecting the phosphatidylcholine or arachidonic acid levels. FADS2 affects the conversion of omega-3 ALA into EPA. So she's providing more information for her question.
Yeah, so if you go back to the chart that I put, you have the reason why you're working down here at the eicosanoid level is because you haven't got past the D6D level at the top. So if you give the body that first and foremost, it's going to take care of everything down the food chain, as I said.
Now, Mac Vest, I ask you to provide a little more information on your question, because your question just says linoleic acid, what's the difference? So I'm going to need more information on that question. A question here, nephron reabsorbs glucose or sodium. What sort of transporter is there of it?
I don't know anything about that.
Well, Karen, if you want to elaborate, please do. Now, another question is, what's the name of the regular supplement?
PEOs.
Oh,
Parent essential oils.
didn't let's see, Robert what's his name, Rowan, write a book on PEOs? I believe he did.
Yes, he did. He wrote it with my partner.
Okay, well,
Brian Peskin.
I think I've got, I've read that book. And the same question, the regular product we can get, I think the same answer goes to Ilana. What would be good things to eat to get in the right direction for prevention?
Well, you want to minimize, obviously, the processed food. So you don't want to be eating McDonald's every day. But other than that, and minimize your amount of carbs.
Sounds good.
Real simple.
That's what everybody's recommending. Are you working on some sort of test to distinguish between the goods and the bad fat?
Well, the only bad fat or your oils like canola oil or soybean oil or any oil that's been processed that sits on a shelf in a grocery store.
Another question, can we send you our clients' inflammatory test results so you can make a further prognosis? I realize you can't diagnose, but maybe you can just give some hints.
Yeah, if that's coming from an MD or something, then certainly I work with MDs and consult with them. Again, I don't make you're right. I don't make any diagnosis, but I can point you in the right direction for the right information that's coming from people smarter than me. Okay.
Now, here's a good question. What about fats such as duck fat, which I love, ghee, which I like, and coconut oil? Those seem like good oil. So what do you recommend on those?
Duck oil is good because it's natural fat from an animal. Ghee is perfect for cooking with high temperature. Other than that, use butter. Organic coconut oil is fine as well, but it's not going to give you enough of the LA that you require, and there's none out there. So, but we use a small amount of it in our product, or over-the-counter product, as a natural preservative.
Now, Mona gives you positive feedback, very helpful, so she's appreciative.
Let me follow up real quick with one. Ada, you're the one who just bought some of my product and you sent me an email right before this call. So I'll follow up with you afterwards.
Okay. Question. Is there a substantial difference between the over-the-counter version and the medical version?
Yes, it's the ratio of the oils, because the medical product is for more or less more immediate relief of the chronic pain and inflammation that's happening, if that makes sense, because people that are suffering from that need that right away. The other product is formulated differently with same linoleic acid, ALA, same thing. It's just formulated differently because of what we're working on. Okay.
Now, linoleic acid versus linolenic acid. The question is, what's the difference? I think you covered that, one leading to omega-3, now the omega-6, but why don't you address that?
Yeah, exactly. The one, right. LA is the parent omega-6 that makes up the building blocks of your entire body, all your skin, all your cardiovascular system. The omega-3 does somewhat, but it's got most of that's used in the eyes and the brain and more energy and stuff.
Okay, here's a legitimate question. How long to turn over and replace damaged fats with good fats? How long does that take?
Well, again, every day there's cells dying and being rebuilt. So, it just depends on which part of the body. But normally in our studies that were published called the Iowa experiment, which was investigative oils with regard to cardiovascular disease, using FDA approved testing devices, we showed that as little as 90 days on our product, you could reverse the aging of the cardiovascular system by almost 9 years. So if you tested it, you were 60 years old before, once you took our product for 90 days, you had the cardiovascular system of someone 51 years old.
Now, someone's asking about the ratio of EPA to DHA. I think normally it's 7-to-1. You were saying 11-to-1. You're saying like in the skin, it's 10,000.
Actually, the EPA and DHA are the same thing. They're a derivative. They're omega-3. They're omega-3 derivative. Maybe what they were asking is the LA to the ALA.
Well, no, they want to know the ratio of EPA to DHA. Is that important only if you supplement?
There's no, it's insignificant because that's what we get too much of. That's all the fish oil is EPA and DHA.
Okay. How bad is it to fry eggs in extra virgin olive oil?
I'll take a half a dozen of them right now.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me.
It's good, but I'd prefer butter.
Okay. What does Estrec cost?
Oh, I'm not going to get into pricing.
Okay, fair enough. Iowa experiment was the medical version. Any studies on the over-the-counter version?
No, the Iowa that was done on the PEOs. We have neuropathies studies done at the University of Miami's Wound Healing Center with the PEOs. We have tons of stuff on the PEOs. The difference being is we were focused on that. And then once we saw how the D6D and all the research coming out about that, we tweaked, or the patent holder tweaked the formulation. And then we had to have a separate product that goes towards the medical food. It couldn't be the same as the other one.
What about Clary?
So let me go back. So let me answer the question. Let me ask you. So the medical food product is $100 a month.
Okay.
That's fine. You take it Monday through Friday, a teaspoon. That's it. A teaspoon. It's like olive oil.
What about clary sage seed oil?
I don't even know what it is.
Okay. And if you want to add more on that, you can, and I'll relay it. Anna, I don't mind you coming on to speak if you wish. Okay. Mona. Yeah. Pardon?
I say the biggest issue is being able to get enough of the all organic, unprocessed plant seed oil. So the question was asked about some kind of plant or whatever that I'm not familiar with, or what it contains.
Okay. I've got another question about the ALA to LA ratio. I recall you saying anyway, why don't you, so I've got another question about it. She forgot to write it down.
So the ratio that we recommend is 2.5 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3.
Okay. That sounds lower than everything else I read. Okay, now iPhone's giving you compliments, especially for your persistence. Then Dionysio put information on where you can find a website you can find PEOs. So you can click that now, or if you want to save the chat, you just hit the 3 little buttons on the bottom and you can save the chat. Lovely material in there. Question, can you take phospholipids, and is that equivalent to your product?
No, not the same.
More positive.
You have to get these. Yeah. You have to get these oils from plant seeds.
Okay. ALA apparently comes from organic clary sage. Okay, Steve gives you more.
But it also comes from flaxseed oil.
Yeah, don't flax seeds and all these things get rancid very easily? So if you don't use them right away, then you get oxidative stress.
Absolutely. And it depends on where they come from. Here's something else that people don't realize. The craze out there is CBD oil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, for pain, for this, for everything else. Well, if you Google what are the active oils in CBD oil, they're LA and ALA in the same ratio as our patented product. The only difference is you don't know the quality of the oil that's in that CBD. Where's it coming from? How is it chemically processed to extract those oils? That's why we don't use it. Okay. And you wouldn't recommend starting to take CBD oil from the time you're 2 or 3 years old when children need to be on our product.
Now, there's some information for people listening that don't have access to the chat. To find out more about clary sage seed and seed oil, the website is sageomega3.com. That's SAGE omega3.com. And Mike, his website is www.oxygen4, that's the number, life.com. I've got a question about
Oxygen for Life,
oil.
Inc. Oxygen for Life, INC.
Yeah, okay. Oxygen4lifeinc.com, my boo-boo. What about olive oil?
Olive oil is great for cooking, salad dressings, trying to use extra virgin.
What about if you go
And
high
again, going
temperature?
back, right, exactly, no high temperature. Again, going here, I'm going to answer the one from Karen. There's two here. So Mona, let's see, the sage omega-3, again, we get plenty of omega-3. Those are that sage omega-3, again, it's a derivative. You want the parent form, and what's more important is the omega-6. And then the Budwig diet works great with the flax getting into the cells. So Karen, you're absolutely correct. But Budwig wrote her thesis and whatever he did, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the Budwig diet, the cottage cheese and flax. At that time, we didn't live in an environment of processed oils in all the food supply. So her diet today doesn't count for or counteract the fact that we don't get any omega-6 that's unprocessed. That's the key. Okay. So she had the right idea, but times have changed because the food supplies changed.
Sure has. Now, here's a comment. Why is mainstream health all about omega-3 and think omega-6 is bad?
I mentioned it a little bit in the presentation because the omega-6 is in all the food we eat. That 70% processed food we eat all contains omega-6, but it's all been processed. It doesn't work in the body. It's plastic. That means your cells are now basically plastic. So you have to get the omega-6. That's why I showed the article was published in 2013 about unadulterated versus adulterated. So that's what I said. People parroting, they just parrot what they've been saying because they have no knowledge of physiology. It's one of the hardest fields of study there is.
And Karen adds, when you're on the Budwig diet, you don't eat anything else. So she makes that comment.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been on it.
And it works well with the flax getting into the cells. It helped her a lot. Well, any other questions? We can type them in. Any other information people want to share? Okay. Well,
but hey, I want to say that I used the product, been using the product about 6 months, and I had a mild stroke back in May of last year, and I strained my back about a week later, and that was worse than the symptoms of the stroke. And about a week or so later, I got the product and started taking it. I immediately felt a relief, and just like, and thinking, is this, psychological or is this physiological? And about 4 or 5 days later, my back strain was gone just because the anti-inflammatory elements of the thing. And I've been taking it ever since, and I've definitely noticed a change in my body and my health overall. So I really appreciate you bringing this, Mike, and for all your expertise in the presentation here.
Thanks so much, Robert. I want to bring on, if it's okay, Dinocio. Can you unmute? Dinocio lives in Spain.
oh, cool.
And we run in the same circles in the online world of marketing. And so he knew who I was. And so I'd like him to tell his story with not only him, but his entire family with the product, type 1 diabetes to beat.
There we go. Well, yeah, what Mike said, I started, because we were friends in Facebook, I saw Mike make a post about something about diabetes 1, type 1. I have a son, which is 17, and he's been type 1 diabetes for about maybe 3-4 years. Just so you have an idea, the difference between type 1, type 2, at least from my perspective, for what I've been told by doctors, type 2 is when you are eating a lot and eating a lot of carbs, and every time you eat more carbs, you need more insulin to process those carbs, if you want to call it that way, or the sugar, the insulin that needs to move that sugar out of your bloodstream. And the more you take, the more you need, so you become insulin resistance. That's type 2, and you can kind of cure that if you take carbs out of and you start taking the oils, and you take carbs way down, then you can just stop having type 2 diabetes. But type 1, it's when your immune system is confused and thinks that your pancreas is an enemy. So the immune system starts attacking the pancreas, and it completely obliterates it, and it doesn't produce any more insulin. So my son has a digital pump, then has to inject himself with insulin every time he has to eat, because his pancreas does not, the beta cells, I think they're called, are not producing insulin, right? So we've been in this adventure, if you want to call it that way, for like 3-4 years. And when Mike mentioned something about diabetes, I said, well, Mike, you're talking about type 1, type 2, because it's a very big difference. And he just sent me some links to the stuff like he's been teaching right now, the papers, the medical papers. So as soon as I saw that, I got the PEOs here. They shipped them here to Spain for me. And my son started taking it, and well, all of us, my wife and I started taking it too, but the biggest benefit, or the biggest change, was my son. Normally, first of all, because of the type 1 diabetes, his system is a bit out of whack, so he doesn't sleep good, and he wakes up tired and not moody, because he hasn't gotten great sleep. So after about maybe a week of taking this, he started to sleep better, wake up more rested. And incredibly, about maybe, I think it was 8-9 days, when he injected insulin, let's say we were going to have lunch, right? And say, okay, so we're going to have X amount of carbs. We need to know how many carbs he's going to eat. And according to the amount of carbs he's going to eat, he needs to inject himself X amount of insulin, right? But then we have to wait, depending on how much insulin it was and how his blood sugar was at that time. We would sometimes have to wait until up to 30 minutes before he could start eating right after he injects himself, because you need to have some time for the insulin to go into the body and start working, so he can start ingesting food. Well, after about 8 or 9 days or 10 days, that time started to get shorter and shorter and shorter, to the time it took us about 2 weeks. He could just shoot the insulin into his body and eat right away. There was no delay whatsoever, and it's annoying to have to wait 30 minutes to eat, and the food's like already there. But the thing is that the cells, because of the oils, now the cells are more receptive, and they're being able to take in the insulin, and also the insulin is doing a much better job, and it's faster. So that with him was, for us, it was just a home run. I mean, right? If that was the only benefit, which is amazing, we would keep taking it for life. But my wife has arthritis. She has to inject herself about once a week for her arthritis, and her hands hurt, and plethora of other things that arthritis does, because it's also an autoimmune disorder. And after about a week, we started experimenting that we can sleep much better. Then her pain started to disappear gradually. Now he's, instead of injecting herself once a week, then it was once every other week. Then it came to once every month. She also had to put her drops in her eyes. She had dried eyes, and she had to put drops in the morning and then in the afternoon. She hasn't had to put those drops in about 3 months now. So it is incredible that something so simple, that's what blows my mind. This is not a special drug that was, discovered. This is just something so simple as taking the oils. I take the liquid form because I think there's a problem with the capsules when they come here because of customs. So basically the oil is the same thing as the capsules. It's just, the capsule is just a capsule, and I take it in a spoon, and it's the oil. I cook with olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. If I do eggs, fried eggs, anything I do, the only oil that's in my kitchen is extra virgin olive oil. That's the way it's always been here in Spain. We make it here, So I cannot say, bigger things than this PEOs. If you're feeling tired, if myself, I had aches, in my knees. I'm 50 years old. I've been a bit overweight all my life, and I had aches. And after about a couple of weeks of taking this, you have a lighter step to yourself. You feel much better overall. Your energy is back. Listen, just try it out. I can guarantee you this is going to be the best decision you're ever going to make. Just one caveat here. Once you try this, you will never get off it. I can guarantee you that also.
Wow, that's quite a testimony. Some questions have popped up. The question comes back of, to get the medical grade, do you need a doctor involved?
Yep, you have to have a doctor. But Dionisio just told you his testimonial with arthritis, diabetes 1, fatigue, energy. Those were on the over-the-counter, the PEOs.
Yeah, the normal PEOs. I haven't
The normal
seen
PEOs.
Right.
So Dionisio, were you taking the medical grade or the other?
The normal, the link I put, which is shop.oxygenforlife.com. You have the normal ones. You cannot purchase S-Trek on the shop. You can only purchase either the capsules or the oils, which is the same thing. I just get the oils, and it's the over-the-counter, just the normal thing. Which we did at the beginning is because we were new to it. We started taking a double dose. We took I think it was for maybe a month. I think it was a month. We, instead of 1 teaspoon a day, we took 2 teaspoons a day. Or I think it was 10 days or 15 days. 2 teaspoons a day instead of 1, and then we dialed it back to 1.
And how much better is the medical grade than the non-medical grade? I mean, what is the difference?
So the PEOs that Robert took, and I told him the same thing, take double dose because of age, weight, affliction. Same thing with DG, double dose of the PEOs over the counter. That's for everyday aches, pains, take them every day. The medical grade is for someone who's been diagnosed with a much more serious medical condition with chronic inflammation. You don't want to take the medical one if you don't have that, because you want inflammation in the body. The inflammation is there, which you have to have if you cut yourself, inflammation's given off to send the signal, hey, we need clotting, we need help. We need, we got a stub toe. So if you were taking a medical food grade that you didn't need just because you wanted to, you may not experience that correctly. I don't know, but it's overkill.
That's good to know. So Karen is discussing PEMF devices. There's a beamer and the cloud and stuff that's helped for diabetic patients. And there've been studies.
Let me adjust. I'm sorry. Let me address that one. Yeah, I sell to quite a few BEMER distributors. They've asked me to private label my product for them. Though, again, those things will work on a temporary scale, and you've always got to be doing it. But those will work even better. Same thing with hyperbaric oxygen. If you have a cell membrane that's receptive to the energy or to the oxygen that's being pumped into the body. If you have plastic, it's like knock, 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 let me in. And the cell goes, nope, not coming in. The minerals, the vitamins, the amino acids you're eating, they don't get into the cell. And even worse is that when energy is produced in that cell, toxins are produced. They have to get back out. If you don't, then they become toxic. And then guess what happens to that cell? And the next cell and another cell and another cell. So any one of these things, including pharmaceutical drugs or any supplements you're taking, will work better if you're on our product first, because what you're taking can get into the cell and actually work.
Okay. What about avocado oil? Can you cook with it? Can you cook at a high heat with it? What do you
Of course. Well, the avocado oil, you just have to be careful with any cooking oil, because once it heats up, it becomes sticky and tacky. That's what happens inside your body with processed oils, becomes sticky and tacky.
Okay. Do you take insurance for doctor's referrals?
I don't quite understand that one.
I don't either. I mean, it sounds like that they're asking for a consultation from you, and whether that.
Yeah, Ada, I said you already bought some product. I will talk to you later.
Okay.
I don't know what the question means.
Now, there's a question, what did Dionyso take? And I assume it was a non-medical grade.
Correct. That's the link he just put in there.
Yeah. And then Anna says the Beamer is an old design. The Cloud from Centropix is a lot better, and she could tell you more about that. Okay. Any other questions?
And it's probably because my memory is not that great. So if I don't write it down, it's gone. But this has been fabulous. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. I just wanted to say hi because I've seen you over there. So our products is very good for the brain too.
Well, and I could use help. Thank you. 75, just turned 75. And
I had an 88-year-old customer of mine who's been a customer for 10 or 15 years, Joan Casey from Florida, said, "Hey, Mike, I need to order more. I just finally sold my house. I moved in with my daughter and blah, blah, blah." And, and I'd love to be able to get those people on video, but they're just, a little more challenged using a computer and the phone, because they would make great testimonials. And I have so many. Well, my dad's going to be 90 in May, and he still plays golf 3 days a week. And my mom too, 84. So they've been on the product forever, but they just work. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, there's a question about a better version of the Beamer, and Anna Coulter can relay information. So Anna, why don't you tell us your email address and put it in the chart? And if I can find you, found your husband, and so they can contact you if they want information. There you are. So why don't you give them your email address? I'm asking you to unmute and put it in the chat. So if people want to know more about the Cloud, they can contact you directly. Okay, Anna's not responding. Maybe I'll ask her husband to chip in. So
It's in the chat.
okay, Anna's on. Okay, give them your
in the
email
chat.
address if they want to know about the Cloud.
Yeah, it's designed by the same guy as the Beamer, but it's way upgraded.
Yeah, but so how do people get a hold of you?
I put it in the chat.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Just want to make sure they can get a hold of you. There it is. Coulter, oh, that's Coulter, Anna at AOL.com.
Thank you.
And just email Anna directly and she'll give you all the information. I don't know if she's got a website. Unfortunately, Zoom readers. Yeah, Anna's also doing something with GlycoCheck, which I think is another great product. If you want to get those, reverse atherosclerotic plaque and stuff, it's a great product. So you can contact Anna about that. That is something that for vascular disease, you've got these little hairs on your vessels, and those are the first things to go. They make sure you get nitric oxide and stuff. And then the people I've talked to, they were going to get stents placed in the coronary arteries, but they took the endocalyx and their arteries were clear. So Anna can tell you a lot about that as well. So Anna's your gal on these two things. Okay. Any questions? Well, I thank you for hanging in there with all this adversity. Some of it was actually rather amusing, but might not have been amusing to others. And I want to thank Mike for his great presentation and information. I think I'm going to order some. Sounds pretty good. Also, I think he's, I mean, if I think that it's, he might be looking for investments as well, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway,
I didn't know if I could say anything.
well, I'm not allowing you to say anything because you don't want to be advertising, do you?
Yeah, I can.
You can say it.
It's
I don't-
legal.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make you look better. But if you want to let people know, let them know.
Yeah, and I need you to email me.
I pressed the button, nothing happened. They pressed it several times.
I just think it's I think Robert had said you guys were having email, or not email, but you were having internet issues or
I've
something.
had
last
no
couple of-
internet and email for 3 weeks. I hijacked someone else's Wi-Fi to get on this meeting.
Oh,
I let
wow.
someone
Yeah,
else's
so we just need,
Wow.
so anyway, so we're doing what's called equity crowdfunding to raise money to get more doctors on board. Equity crowdfunding is a way that over the last 6 years, called the Jobs Act, companies like myself can actually use the public media, social media, to advertise. So last Friday, we officially filed and registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and all the documents are there. And if you go to that same website, oxygenforlifeinc.com, the number 4, then you can click a button and go find out all about it and what we're doing. So yeah, it's very cool. We had a great weekend.
And in answer to some of the questions, we have monthly meetings. When we had the pandemic, I was doing it weekly because we had access to the whole world. So we have monthly meetings. We put these on our website, www.svhi.com. Ones that talk about COVID, I don't put on there because we were censored on Robert Rowan, we were censored on vitamin C, and I think one more and you get cut off. So anyway, so our website will have the ones that won't be censored, except they censored non-censorable ones anyway. And you know, that's our story. If you want to be on the email list, you can just go to the website, svhi.com, and it'll allow you to sign up, or you can just send an email to Silicon Valley Health Institute. I'll get it and make sure you're signed up, or put it in the chat quickly.
That's why I didn't mention the C word, because I know what happens when YouTube goes through. They'll